activities or attending schools. All these areas were very clearly studied by the government and security forces in Vanni, were tasked to create conditions and coordinate these activities with INGOs and government departments. Societies emerging from civil war are typically traumatized by exceptional violence. Demonstration of a commitment to human rights against extrajudicial killings, torture, disappearances, and respect for human values is critical to create this kind of confidence. Human rights thus appear as an early and continuous priority. The government allowed all human rights organizations to come into Vanni region and look into this aspect to ensure the human rights are protected. The concept of governance is as old as human civilization. Governance is the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. The government has the concern for ensuring responsive, accountable, transparent, decentralized and people-friendly administration at all levels. A prime concern of the government in Vanni was to give primacy to removal of unemployment and to an accelerated development of infrastructure with expedited implementation of policies and programs in accordance with the national interest. Inviting investors into the region to start commercial activities was one of the priorities in government agenda. Ensuring a safe and secure environment for the investors to come was one of the primary responsibilities that was vested upon the military. The labor, both organized or unorganized, skilled or unskilled, is a proud partner in the production of the nation's wealth and in its progress. Other than the normal civil laborers, the military recommended the employment of rehabilitated ex-combatants who were reintegrated into the society with sufficient vocational training by giving them more opportunities. The government's new investment and institutional thrust to agriculture, the self-employed, the unincorporated sector, infrastructure development and housing acted as the vehicle for massive employment creation at all levels. Ladies and gentlemen, now let us get on to the resettlement in Vanni. Having caused sufficient hardships for the population and the economy of the country, the ethnic conflict in Sri Lanka left hundreds of thousands of people in transit, displaced and seeking refuge with host families or in temporary relief villages. During and after the end of the conflict, the IDPs as well as residence populations in affected regions of Vanni remained highly exposed to a range of risks due to the destruction of public infrastructure, absence of shelter, medical services, livelihood support and access to basic services. Resettlement became a huge task for the government of Sri Lanka. Nearly 300,000 IDPs resettling in their respective lands was not an easy task. Accordance with the fulfillment, following were the main challenges faced by the government and security forces in Vanni in resettlement of IDPs. However, a speedy resettlement was planned and implemented in stages. To achieve this, everybody in every government organization had to work round the clock to reach desired aspirations. The coordination between government officials, security forces and NGOs was done with the sheer interest to resettle these poor people as soon as possible. District secretaries were tasked to identify village and its people who were displaced. Then the mine action survey started to identify the contaminated areas in selected lands of the IDPs. Tasking was done by the Security Force Commander Vanni and the mine action team to ensure the areas are free of mines. Once the UNDP inspection was done, the land release certificate was issued by the UNDP declaring the land is free of mines and ready for occupation. On 5th August 2009, resettlement commenced. 1,087 IDPs were sent to their native areas in Jaffna, Batiklo, Trincomalee and Ampare. Following were provided to each family on their resettlement, as shown on the screen. Once they reached their respective villages, they were kept in an intermediate transit camps for a few days, allowing them to inspect their lands and put up a shelter. Meantime, access roads were repaired, wells were cleaned, and drinking water was provided. Other than the security forces, the government officials, NGOs, and respective ministers and parliamentarians also played their role religiously. In contrast, following are the most significant. At the reception of IDPs and aftermath of the public health was a major concern with all the communicable diseases. With very well established curative and preventive healthcare system, the government managed to overcome the health challenges in Vanni. During the resettlement, army medical hospitals positioned in under-command formations have undertook number of medical clinics in the areas where there were no access to good medical facilities. With the progress of the resettlement, schools were renovated with the assistance of donors and other agencies, and troops provided manpower assistance. School equipment were provided by the government, well-wishers and INGOs. Over and above, number of programs were organized to donate school materials. Psychosocial centers were established in schools by military with the help of well-wishers in order to improve the mental, physical condition and psychosocial well-being of children in war-affected areas. Career counseling sessions were done for the young adults. Educational tours were arranged for children from remote areas to visit the countryside, which they have never seen. These trips covered Colombo, up-country, down south, etc. Security forces provided the transport, accommodation, and meals. Immediate steps were taken to renovate all the places of religious importance in multi-religion society by troops deployed in respective formations. The topmost priority was given to address the religious and cultural activities of the community. Further, similar to other areas of the country, programs were arranged for them to participate in cultural events. An administrative system was put in place making use of the services of government officers before the commencement of resettlement. Many IDPs who had lost all their important documents, including birth certificates and national identity cards, during the long period of displacement. Therefore, the government took the initiative to fast-track the issuing of temporary ID cards to facilitate the movement of IDPs. Paddy fields and cultivating areas were cleared and handed over so that the people could start their usual ways of living. New buses and other transport means were introduced for the resettled people to move from place to place. More and more job opportunities were created, and many people joined the development work as skilled and unskilled labor. Now, it was quite evident that the leading role played by the government, being in hand with the security forces, to accomplish the gigantic task of reconstruction and resettlement by virtue of rebuild another nation of Sri Lanka. We are happy to say that almost 98% of the resettlement has been completed. However, we all need to understand that the biggest delay in the resettlement program was due to the demining requirement. However, as directed by the government, we are going all out to complete the resettlement program by end of August this year. Similarly, one should also remember and understand the most significant role played by the security forces of the country in the post-conflict scenario in assisting the government in the nation-building task to achieve peace and ethnic harmony, and especially unity among the diverse communities in our society. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I come to the end of my presentation. I thank you all for patience hearing. Thank you.